Today we're going to get into section 3, some rules for addition. So the idea is, how are we going to add these things together without using a number line? So we're going to give you some rules so that you're able to add those together and come out with your answer without using a number line. Okay. Hopefully everyone can read that. The rules. So number 1, if A and B are positive, so if you're going to add two numbers, and A can be anything, and B can be anything. But if I'm adding two numbers together, and both of these numbers are positive, then the answer is going to be the positive of what they add together as. So basically, the addition with two positive numbers is what you've done all the way from 3rd grade on through now. Nothing difficult. So if A and B are 2 and 3, you know the answer is 5. So that's all that's saying. And giving you the absolute value of 2 is 2, and the absolute value of B, or 5, is 5, and 2 and 5 is 7. Okay. If A and B are both negative, if you're adding two numbers together and they're both negative, then A plus B is the opposite of the absolute value of A plus B. Let's put that in simpler terms, okay? If you're adding two numbers together and they both have the same sign, they're either both positive or both negative, you're just going to add them like normal, and then you're going to use the sign that they have, both numbers have. So if I have 2 plus 3, it's 5. If I have negative 2 plus negative 3, we're still going to just add those together and get 5, but we're going to use the negative sign because both of those numbers we're adding are negative. So if you're adding two things together and they have the same sign, add them together and use the sign that they have. That's all that's saying with the absolute value. And so negative 5 plus negative 7, 5 and 7 is 12, and we use the negative sign because they're both negative. Okay. Where it gets a little more confusing, where you're going to need to practice because where you're going to get a little confused until you do a bunch of these, is when you're adding negative numbers and positive numbers together. Okay? So, if I'm adding two numbers together, if the first number, the A, if the first number is positive, and the second number, B, is negative, in other words, A has the greater absolute value, A is the positive number. That's all it means, the greater absolute value, okay? Then A plus B is just the larger number minus the smaller number, okay? So, if you're adding 6 and negative 4, you have the absolute value of 6, which is 6, minus the absolute value of negative 4, which is 4, and the answer is 2. Okay. If we're doing it the opposite way, if the first number is positive and the second number is negative, and B has the greater absolute value, in other words, the negative number is the larger number, then you're still going to subtract the B from the A, and then you're just going to use the opposite sign. So let me really quickly put this in plain vanilla for you guys, okay? We're going to make this really simple, because those absolute values are confusing. If you're adding together two numbers and they have different signs, it doesn't matter if they're first or second. 7 plus negative 2, or if I have negative 7 plus positive 2, okay? If I'm adding together two numbers and they have different signs, I'm going to take whichever number is larger, and I'm going to subtract the smaller. So for both of these, it's going to be 7 minus 2, which is 5. And I'm going to use the sign of whichever number was larger. So here, it's just 5, because the larger number 7 was the positive. Here, it's going to be negative 5, because the larger number was the negative number. Okay? So, I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on adding 2 plus 1. Again, these are all things that you've done. So when you have two positive numbers, you're just adding them. There's nothing special about that, okay? You're just adding the numbers. When you're adding two negative numbers, you're going to add the numbers together and use the negative sign. Okay? 2 plus 1 is 3, negative 3. 6 plus 1 is 7, negative 7. 5 plus 9 is 14, negative 14. Negative 12 plus negative 5 is 12 plus 5 is 17, and use the negative sign. Okay? Again, I think adding the negative numbers together aren't going to be too much of a trouble for you either. So let's practice the other ones. So when you're adding two numbers with different signs, so just subtract the smaller number from the bigger number, the larger number, and then use the sign of the larger number. All right, so let's go around the room. We'll start with Desiree. -2 plus 3.
5. No, 1.
Right. 3 minus 2, the larger number minus the smaller number, gives you 1, and we use the sign, which is positive, of the larger number. So it's just 1. Very good. Okay. Linda.
-1.
Okay. Very good. -3, so I'm going to subtract the smaller number from the larger, which is 1. And because the negative sign is the larger number, it's -1. Okay. Tiffany. 6 plus -1. I'm sorry? I can't. Oh, -5. Okay. Well, you're going to take this is what you're going to do. The larger number, 6, subtract the smaller number. What's that? 6 minus 1 is what? 5. And use the sign of the larger number. Which one's larger, the 6 or the 1?
The 1.
What's larger, the 6 or 1? Which is higher? 6.
6.
6 is more than 1, right? So you use the positive sign because the 6 is the positive. The larger number is positive, so you're going to use the positive sign. 6 plus -1 is just 5. Okay, Weston. -6 plus 1.
5. Mine, -5.
-5. 6 minus 1 is 5. The larger number is the negative, so -5. Okay, Alex. 14. I'm sorry, -14 plus 8. I'm sorry? Because 14 is the larger number. When I subtract 8, I get 6. And then the larger number is negative. I use the sign of the larger number. -6. Okay. Felix. 14 plus -8.
+6.
+6. Good. 14 minus 8 is 6. The larger number is positive. The answer is 6. Okay. Hojin. -9 plus 12.
3.
3. +3. Good. Larger number minus the smaller number. 12 minus 9 is 3. The larger number is positive. It's +3. Okay. Eric. 100 plus -90.
10.
Good. 100 is the larger number. Subtract 90. It gives you 10. The larger number is positive. It's +10. Very good. Okay. Harold. -90 plus 73.
7.
I'm sorry, I can't.
17.
Okay, 90, the larger number, minus the smaller number, 73, does give you 17. Which is larger, 90 or 73?
Negative.
Right, the larger number's a negative, so the answer is going to be a negative number. Good. Okay, Noah. 55 plus -66.
-121.
All right, which one's the larger number, 66 or 55? 66. That's the larger number. I'm going to subtract the smaller number. What's 66 minus 55? What's 6 minus 5? 1. What's 6 minus 5? 1. My answer is 11. Which is larger, the negative number or the positive number? -11. Okay? Does anybody have any questions on that before I move on? Did everybody follow that okay? That will be a lot easier to remember than trying to remember the absolute value of this and that. And that's all in your book. So if you're the kind of student that wants to memorize that absolute value formula, you can do that as well. But to me, that's a lot easier to learn. Okay. And